Hi everyone, I hope that you're faring well in these strange times. I feel like the pause button has been pressed on normal life, and one thing that God's really been saying to me is just to rest in Him. The verse that's really been bouncing around my head is one from John's Gospel, John chapter 15 verse 4, and it says this: "Remain in me and I in you." And this just got me investigating. So the early church, Christianity became legalized in the 4th century throughout the Roman Empire. Believers no longer were faced with the threat of martyrdom, but they were faced with the threat of compromise and apathy throughout the culture that they were living in. And there was a real move of the Spirit back in the 4th century. The Spirit drew men and women from the towns and cities into the desert. These were men and women that sought solitude and devoted themselves to prayer and to a life following Jesus. And this spread right away from Africa up to Celtic Britain. Today's era feels like one of chaos and compromise, much like it did for the early believers. And it just got me thinking, like, what if the Spirit is leading us into an era of deeper prayer and more committed community? Jesus, in that verse that I quoted, just called it abiding in Him, as the King James Version puts it. One of the early believers that went into the wilderness was someone called Abba Moses. He was what's known as a desert father, and he said this: "Go into your cell, and it will teach you everything you need to know." And this advice was given to, let's call them monks and nuns, people that sought solitude. But I think there's some wisdom in it for each of us as well. Throughout this time, I think God is saying, just stay in the quiet and let God work in our time of waiting. In that quote, it talks about cells, and I'm not sure what your cell is. It could be boredom, it could be our home, literally our 4 walls. It could be an addiction that we have to live with no escape from every day. But I think there's something in making peace with the quiet. When God leads us through that, it forms character. And it just got me thinking, like, how amazing would it be to come out of this lockdown more devoted to scripture, to prayer, and to know what it is to abide in Jesus. I think I've certainly been challenged in this way, and I've got a long way to go. But I think being faithful to what God has called us to do is the ultimate of virtues. It says in Matthew's Gospel, Matthew 24 verse 13, "The one who perseveres to the end will be saved." And I think during lockdown, for me, God has definitely extended an offer to find Him in a new way by abiding in Him. I hope this helps you. God bless.